It's good to have you once again on Daily Politics. This is a program that engages issues around politics, policy, and governance. My name is Shafiu Suleiman. And today on the platform, we're looking at two critical issues. One, we're looking at the latest developments in the polity, and subsequently, we'll be looking at the excessive monetization of the polity. For those of you that have been following development in the polity, you will be amazed, at the number of political aspirants turning in millions, raking in millions of naira, billions, so to speak, because it is now running into billions for the purchase of nomination and expression of interest forms across party lines. So we'll be looking at that and perhaps the benchmark and what needs to be done to track some of the spendings and, also interrogate some of the sources. But before that, we'll be looking at the latest entrance into the presidential race. Today, adding to the number, initially we have 24, 25, thereabout. Presidential aspirants, seeking the number one to contest, the presidential seat, especially from the ruling All Progressives Congress, the APC. Today we have three other major gladiators joining the race. One is the Senate president, talking about Ahmad Lawan, who has joined the race to the presidency. Again, we also have the Minister of State Petroleum, Timothy Silva, also throwing his hat in the ring. And then the latest one, talking about a group, picking the presidential forms for the former president, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. I remember there have been speculations around his possibly joining the contest. So we'll be looking at all of this. There are other developments as well. And I have in the studio this evening, Mr. Jide Ojo, a political affairs analyst. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Shafi.
Right. Also joining us for the discussion is Malam Hamza Idris, the general editor, Daily Trust newspaper. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's begin with you, Mr. Jide Ojo. Nigeria's polity is becoming more and more interesting, some would say. Permutations, ahead of the 2023 elections, becoming scary. Even for those who have been following the trend, calculation is they're losing, the calculations at some point, because in as much as you try to permutate around a particular line, you begin to see the changes and the development in the polity. Let me start by getting your perspective on those as looking at, aspiring to become candidates. Let's start with the APC now, for instance. So far, we have about 27 or thereabout. And then these are, top political gladiators across party lines, across ethnic divides, across, regional divides and so on. What do you make up with the number? And it keeps growing.
Well, it's fascinating and interesting. And I just imagine if the party has not deemed fit to put the threshold at 100 million naira, whether we will not have had up to 500. Because they make 100 million naira look like it's money for biscuits and sweet. The way they were coughing this money, and what is worrisome for me is the third party spending. Because what they are now doing is that they channel the money through faceless groups, or the groups that you cannot even authenticate their veracity, whether they are genuine or not. Many of these groups are not registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission. We never heard about them prior to now. All these support groups, springing up, mushrooming per second. How could And what I find worrisome, Shafi, is this idea of buying form on behalf of people who have not officially, formally endorsed your action. And I'm here not even citing, I'm not citing Emefiele, because Emefiele obviously was partisan. He was just playing like
but he didn't pick the form by himself.
No, no, no.
And he is not accepting
by instituting that legal action today, it shows that he is interested. The gloves are off. All the pretenses about, oh, I want to focus on helping the president to manage the economy, that is the legal action he instituted, that he wants to retain his position and at the same time vying for #1 seat of this country.
But isn't that the right thing to do? No, if you are in a in a constitutional dilemma, you perhaps need to seek the clarifications from the...
See, what I will say is that the president is at fault here. He hires and fires. We've seen a sitting president that removed Sanusi, Lamido Sanusi. Evans did not fall. Do you get it? This is a needless distraction. You want to build an economy, and your CBN governor is a card-carrying member of the ruling party. Do you know?
Well, we're yet to establish whether he's a card-carrying member.
We have established he's a member of Ward 6 in the South local government. Ward 6 in South local government. A newspaper has published that. But let me also not, before I digress too much, the issue I'm talking about is about Adesina, who is not even in Nigeria. And a faceless group has gone ahead to procure nomination form for him, and they are now telling us they could not even establish contact with him. How could you? We are talking of 100 million. We are not talking of peanuts here. That you bought the form without clearance from the man on whose behalf you purportedly went to buy the form. The case of Goodluck Jonathan, we heard that it's a serving governor that paid for the form on his behalf.
A group, another coalition group or so, both picked the form.
They said a serving governor.
We will get to that. Development is still unfolding. Malhamza, beyond the facelessness of the groups, buying or picking these forms, and of course the manner in which they are being presented, because for the first time today we're also hearing a new dimension. Timi Pre-Silva forms were said to have been presented to him as gifts, for instance. And then the groups, and then looking at also the amount of money, just like Mr. Jide Ojo has said, where are these monies coming from? In an economy that is said to be in recession somehow, where the country is suffering rising indices of poverty and all of that. Where are these monies coming from?
Let me be frank with you. Nigeria is rich. Whoever tells you that Nigeria is poor, he don't know how the economy is being run. But we have allowed individuals to become emperors. Yes, and that is why you see the ministers, heads of agencies, and what have you, giving out monies to private individuals, and then they form phantom groups, and then give them money to go and procure this multi-million naira forms. Have you ever? I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. Have you ever heard of the group that bought the president's form in 2019? I think it was a
in
group.
2018. Yeah, a one Kogi group.
Yes, we know in 2015 he reportedly borrowed money from bank, but in 2018, stroke 2019, it was a certain group. And that group, we just heard about it,
for that purpose.
For that purpose. And since then,
they fizzle out.
They have fizzled out because they have performed their responsibility. In a Senate client, everybody will be arrested. You understand? So we are now seeing a repeat of that. Almost all
multiple
those
times.
Yes, apart from one or two people that said, look, I am buying my form from my pocket. Almost all of them. Now you are asking how the monies are coming.
In this level, I mean, with this level of so-called poverty.
Despite the TSA, I can assure you that many ministries get their monies, especially the agencies under the ministries. They control their resources. This is one. And then secondly, the ministers can hire and fire. What am I trying to say? They give contracts. Because they have this, they have been nursing their ambition way back. Don't be surprised that they gave contracts to some people long ago. You know, a multi-billion naira contract that say, okay, you are going to fund my campaign. You will continue to, because look, this is peanuts, the 100 million, I can assure you, because they have been spending a lot of money campaigning.
Yeah, we're talking about much of that. Yeah,
exactly.
Because it's not just about the funds. We are beginning to see people who are even doling out, cars worth millions of naira, and so on. So, even at the state level.
Exactly. So asking where the money is coming from, honestly, is not even necessary because the money is there.
But if it is there, Madam Hamza,
yes,
Nigerians are facing
the target is to use the money because they have monetized democracy. So right from the day they get into office, they've started talking about the next office, and they are ready to spend whatever is there because no accountability.
Okay, no accountability, Mr. Jide Ojo. This is happening in a government, an administration that opposes corruption, for instance. A government that came on the premise of tackling corruption head on, for instance. And we're beginning to see monies coming from left, right, and center, huge amount of money, some coming from public servants, some political appointees. And yet, no one is raising an eyebrow. What exactly is happening?
I wish I knew. I wish I knew what exactly is happening because these beggars believe. I have been a student of political science for over 2 decades. And my first and second degree is in political science. I've never seen anything close to what is unfolding. I've seen, okay, 2 weeks ago I was analyzing. I said, okay, this 100 million naira fund was benchmarked that high to separate men from the boys. But it shows that we are now in the men's club. There are no boys.
That's right. Because even the underdogs, the so-called underdogs, people you don't even think.
The Meji Bankole is speaking. The Meji Bankole last occupied public office maybe in 2007. And you know what I found out is that, in fact, somebody insinuated, which is not impossible, that some money bags, and they do this, some money bags are funding others within certain region in order to whittle down the votes of the votes of delegates that will likely come from that region. I don't know if you get my.
These are certain factors.
No,
there are also those that were said to be in the race to trade, perhaps to negotiate.
The traders are more. The traders are more. You know, there's a trending joke on social media that invest 100 million and reap 500 million. It's Niger bet. You know, when the brass tacks come down, you start negotiating. So, Malam, you need to step down for me. I can't step down. I spent 200 million. Okay, don't worry. I'll give you 300 million. Go and sit down. This one will say, my own is 500 million. It's okay, I'll give you 1 billion. Because
so there are those in that category.
There are those in that category, and this will unfold in the coming days ahead of May 29th, May 30th and 31st. You know what is baffling to me? This has defied all permutations. Initially, the body language seems like APC will zone the presidency to the south. So you have only Yahya Bello, governor of Kogi State, up until last week, being the only one. But today, we have Badaru from Jigawa, we have the president of the Senate, we have
a number of them.
Quite a number of them on daily basis speaking forms. So the bottom line is that there are rationale, which we must not forget. There are rationale behind why so many of them are putting this. One, it is to trade. Trade, monetary trade, position trade, and several other contrast trade. There are diverse trading that is going on. It's like you are doing forex trade or Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. That's the name of the game. There are those who are trading for next, you know, you aim for presidency, you know you won't get it, but they will settle you with senates. So political, you go to Senate or governorship. Or, you know, and there are those who will lose out. They know that they will lose out. But when they are forming cabinet in 2023, they will have consideration, and they will be the one to hold Ministry of Finance or Transportation or any of those. So those traders are more. Even for those, there are those who have more than one reason why they are throwing their ass in the wind. Not that they know they will win, but one, to
so there are varying motives
either
behind
divide
this
votes,
action.
either the funds are procured on their behalf by another money bag, so that they would whittle down the influence and all of that.
Yeah, there were allegations along that line. We've seen also aspirants who, I mean, were together at one, I mean, the first person's event, declaring, and then the next day we have, you see the same person also joining.
Right. One declared today, the other declared, then the other one is visiting and saying solidarity.
Talking about the permutations, yes, he talked about the reason why we're beginning to see the rising number. People are beginning to see that this zoning arrangement might not hold. Yes, there has been this notion that even, I mean, the two major political parties may throw their contest open, so everyone is now valid. Everyone can now contest. But these key people, talking about the Senate president, and of course the former President Goodluck Jonathan, there has been speculations around, the fact that they might be sponsored by people within, the inner cycle of the government and so on, even though that has not been established. There are also permutations along this line that, there could be some pairing of one from the south-south and one from the northeast, even though at that point no name was mentioned. But today's developments have indicated that, yes, we are having one prominent personality from the south-south and then one prominent personality from the northeast. Do you see the possibility of this permutation coming to be on the...
You see, it is really dicey, because right from the word go, the first person that picked the form, there were theories surrounding his intention to pick the form, that he had the backing of the president. Then the next day, you have another person, and then if people unveil the circumstances, they will tell you that he too, has the backing of the president. So number one, it's like the president has thrown the contest open, and then secondly, he has left all the contenders guessing, because each one of you, we've been talking to them, each one will tell you that, look, I have seen the signal that I'm the man to beat.
I can go ahead.
Yes, but none of them till date will tell you that the president has said, you are my candidate. None of them. Only that people around the president, they will say, okay, look, we are with you. And being close to the president, maybe he is in Abuja, you are in Lagos, but for one reason or the other, you claim that you are part of the inner, inner circle. Yeah. This is one. Now, on the issue of a pairing, is very likely, because you can't have the president and the vice president
coming from the
same geopolitical zone. One must come from the north, and the other one from the south. But I see something most likely happening. Maybe most of the aspirants from the south, I'm talking about the three geopolitical zones from the south, they will end up coalescing into one, and then producing one person. And then from the north, having similar scenario, so that you now go between north and south. This may probably drive up to the eve of the election, because no matter what, the president must have his candidate. He can't just take the risk
that it is kept in the dark.
Yes, he can't take the risk of going to Eagle Square or wherever they are going to hold the primaries, blindly, that, okay, let's just go and cast the vote, because at the end of the day, it will be troublesome for him.
Right. One of them is playing safe, just like we said earlier. With the body language and all that, Nigerians knew perhaps that he's going to be in the race. But with the purchase of forms, for him, talking about Godwin Emefiele, the central bank governor, and the uproar, the public outcry and all of that. I remember the PDP was calling for his arrest and what have you. Now he's trying to play safe, perhaps. Instituted a case through his lawyer Michael Zokome, asking a federal high court here in Abuja to interpret certain sections or to get, the parties dragged in to show reason why it shouldn't contest. The Attorney General of the Federation and the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. Looking at, what the grounds and, what is trying to get the court interpret, Section 318, talks about public servants resigning their appointments before engaging in politics and so on. Section 84, subsection 12 is talking about political appointees. Even that one is yet to be implemented because we haven't seen anybody resign. Yeah, and I think the timeline has elapsed. The likes of Rotimi Amechi, the likes of Minister of Education now, Timothy Silva, and all of them are political appointees, and they are yet to resign. And then we are having MFLA asking the court, what do you make up with all of this?
Well, what I made of it is MFLA is just is fishing in troubled waters. Why I say so is that I'm surprised one is instituting that legal action and dragging in Attorney General as well as the INEC. Those are not his headaches. His headache is the party. It's the party because he will have to face screening. And it is the party that will screen him and say, okay, you are qualified. Do you get?
But won't you clear the legal hurdle first?
That is one. Then the head of service have issued a circular. The head of service has issued a circular recently reminding them of the position of Attorney General in the past. But you see, I do not trust the position of Attorney General in this matter because it's an interested party. He is also an aspirant in the
He's also somehow a culprit because he's yet to resign. He's yet to resign.
He's yet to resign, and he's obviously contesting in Kebbi State. So, for me, we are in a state of suspended animation. And there will be several other litigations from unexpected quarters. People will test the judiciary to the limit.
Who are those people? Because the party is already insulating.
No, wait.
Itself from those litigations.
No.
With those conditions attached to the forms.
That you withdraw from the risk.
Yes, you don't take the court.
That is not even what I meant. Did you know that the party APC has issued the guidelines where it says all political appointees should resign 30 days to the primaries.
Yeah, in line with the new
with the Electoral Act. So if you have flouted the guidelines of your party, it's either you take the party to court where you are screened out or you seek justice or redress elsewhere. Now, it is very unfortunate. In many states, governors have issued order to their commissioners
to resign,
and SSA to resign. Weeks back, Ganduje, Akredo, several of the Delta and all of that.
In compliance with
why did the president not ask the secretary to the federal government to do same? I was in a radio program earlier today, and one caller said the president has been held hostage, that he's afraid of his ministers. Because if it were not to be so,
but if
it were not to be so, all these Emefiele, Ngige, they are serving at the pleasure of the president. They are like his lieutenants. And particularly for ministers and SSA, he can drop them like hot potato, nothing will happen. Do you get? Emefiele has a tenured office, and he may not actually be part of those who are envisaged under Section 84, subsection 12, not being a political appointee in the context of somebody that, there are three categories of public servants, or political officials. There are the core public servants, stroke civil servant. There are political appointee, ministers, commissioner, SSA, and the rest of them. Then there are those who are elected. Do you get? Now, I've said it on this program. I said, look, if you look at Who
But are they not all
regulates?
covered by the Section 84,
Who
Section 12?
No, those who are regulated by Section 84.12 are the ministers, commissioners, and SAs, special advisors, senior special assistants, and the rest of them. That, in my own opinion, are those who are regulated. Now, the CBN governor is a public servant, and his position is tenured. Do you get? There is a CBN Act that guarantees that position. But where I feel the president erred by keeping quiet is, even if he were not under Section 84.12, the president has the prerogative to ask him to resign
the right thing is
or
done.
remove.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now, since the president seems to be absent in this direction now, is yet to take a decision or is yet to frown at what is going on. Who applies the brake? INEC, at some point exonerated itself that yes, these are political parties' affairs and what have you. It has nothing to do with that, and so. And then we are also having coming back to the issue of monetization now and the buying and purchase of forms and what have you. The EFCC talking about expanding its net to investigate, to track the funding and what have you. Just yesterday, we had the CAC boss also telling us that they're going to issue a statement, to those associations that are hiding under the cover of political association and buying forms and what have you. At what level would you examine the level of regulation and application of such regulations to ensure that the right thing is done?
We don't have any. We are on autopilot in Nigeria. And
Very
yes,
Very unfortunate.
autopilot covered by high-profile impunity.
Exactly.
Because if not impunity, why should even the APC be selling the forms? You set the rule that, okay, these people should leave office 30 days before
yet
primaries.
you are selling the forms
and
to
you are
them.
still selling the form.
And to them, you
understand?
Yes.
This is one. And then secondly, the politicians, because they believe they can use lawyers to challenge the Constitution, because this is not even challenging the Electoral Act.
No.
Because the Electoral Act is being challenged already in court. But Constitution, how can you just come?
The ground, especially by those who should also ensure its sanctity, for instance.
So you can see it's a family and friends affair. Yes, and I am citing the proverbial iron law of oligarchy. Yes, that those in authority, they want to maintain the status quo. So they protect themselves. What I see coming is that at the end of the day, they will reverse all the laws.
How would that happen?
They will
Because
use the courts.
we're talking about the Constitution, for instance.
Now, for that, I don't know how they are going to do the miracle. I don't know, but you can see.
But we're beginning to see it.
But you can
if,
see
if the court is to interpret.
But it said that while his lawyers should defend why they feel that he is immune from being prosecuted or from being, removed from the contest based on the provision of the Constitution. They said those who set the rule should also come and defend why he should not be allowed to contest. And Nigeria, nothing is impossible, because the governors, the ministers, they all said they are relying on what? The provision of the Electoral Act,
That's right.
including the Attorney General.
Right, even though it's already contesting anyway. The matter is at the Court of Appeal.
Yes.
We don't know what will happen, but then all of this is dragging. As we are confronted with a very tight, electoral schedule and timeline.
As I said, it's impunity on autopilot.
Quite unfortunate. We'll explore much of that when we return. In case you're just joining us, the program is Daily Politics, and we're looking at developments in the polity as well as excessive monetization of the polity ahead of 2023 elections. And I've been interfacing with Malam Hamza Idris, the General Editor, Daily Trust newspapers, and Mr. Jide Ojo, a political affairs analyst. We'll take a break. When we return, we'll look at the implication of all of this on governance and, of course, our leadership recruitment process in Nigeria vis-a-vis the level of, the so-called level of poverty in the country, just opposing it with what we are seeing today, how politicians are, copying out millions of naira, like he said, they are buying sachet water. We'll take a break. We'll return shortly. Thank you very much for staying with us. It's still Daily Politics, and it's reaching you live from Trust Television here in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. And today we're looking at the developments, latest developments in the polity and the excessive monetization of the polity ahead of the general elections. And we've been interfacing with two gentlemen, talking about Mr. Jide Ojo, a political affairs analyst, and Malam Hamza Idris, the general editor, Daily Trust newspaper. Before the break, Malam Hamza is giving us a scary, assessment of what is going on when a country is on autopilot and impunity is at its peak. What will be the implication? Because governance is not, something that should be relegated to the background. It is, it revolves around everything that happens to the country, and then the people's lives are also tied to it and all of that. But then when we see politics being run, like an all-comers thing, what are the implications of all of this?
Shafiu, when you are too lax with the issue of human rights, human rights have limitations. As we speak, fuel queues are back in Abuja. The Minister of State has declared for president. The substantive Minister of Petroleum Resources is away to Côte d'Ivoire. So, for all they care,
there's a classical case of autopilot.
That's what you heard me say. That's what he said. It's on autopilot. Nobody. That is the state of suspended animation that the country is. ASU is on strike. ASU just issued a release today that they have extended their strike for 3 months, 12 weeks.
And the Minister of Education too is...
The Minister of State for Education is also involved in this bazaar that is going on. Likewise, the Minister of Labor and Productivity.
We had the Minister of Transportation whose train was attacked and a number of people...
Few days after, in fact, on your news at 7, I saw victims of that train attack shedding tears, protesting that their loved ones are still in captivity. But the minister is busy meeting traditional rulers and delegates all across the country. That is to tell you that the country is on autopilot. And the president that should have whipped them to order and said, look, you have political interests, I'm not shutting you out, but leave my job. Let me
get people who are ready.
People who are not...
You can face your...
so
your
that you go face... We should not be talking about law. Do you get? There are laws that... Mahatma Gandhi said, politics without principles. That is what we are operating. Impunity, hiding under subterfuge of legalists. When there is absence of governance, every man unto himself, God for us all. That is the state we are. The state in which you can do and undo. And there is no...
Almost free for all.
Look at it this way. Look at it this way. Just to corroborate the autopilot's impunity. The president is away in Côte d'Ivoire. The vice president is meeting delegates all over the place. It's the one that should deputize, isn't it? And hold forth. But Maybe he's going to Akwa Ibom tomorrow on his personal errand. And you know the impunity on top. They are using state resources.
But they said they are going to overcome insecurity. They are going to overcome all
They are using
the
state resources. State resources. Section of the Electoral Act, it used to be Section 100, sub 2 of the Electoral Act 2010. And I've forgotten the section where it is. But it's replicated. That no aspirant should use state resources.
But you don't know whether it is part of his salary anyway.
No. When you use personnel, it's part of state resources. When you use vehicles, it's part of state resources. The time you are using for partisan interests is part of state resources. It's not just the money. But look at it. All the people that matters in this government, all the key ministry officials, except Fashola, we don't know whether by tomorrow Fashola will also throw his. So all the critical infrastructure, the ministers that has to do with key aspects of this government have thrown their ass in the ring.
Yes. Okay, Malamza, I'm talking about allegation of, perhaps possible use of state resources to finance campaigns.
It's not possible use. There is actual use. It's empirically there.
The point I'm driving at is this. Elsewhere, in Kebbi State, for instance, just last week or so, we've seen a number of high-profile VIP cars being doled out, GLKs or what have you. It said, those cars worth about 135 million naira.
Each.
And they were attributed, if you like, or were said to be connected to the aspiration of the Minister of Justice. Minister, yes, Attorney General. But then he said, it was his political allies, associates, and friends that donated those cars. Now, how do we, and do we have mechanisms, to check some of the spendings and monies that are being used for campaigns and what have you? Who has the responsibility and who is doing what to ensure that public resources are not used in this manner?
You see, the rules are there, the regulations are there, but the implementers are there, but they violate them. Let me just use this light word, because they are in the offices to water their flower. They are in the offices to take care of their needs. You see, for instance, what happened in Kebbi State, when those cars were dashed out, there were uproars, the social media and all that. Some mainstream media also carried this story. But the next day, we got a statement from the Office of the Attorney General dismissing that claim that the vehicles were destroyed. Yes, but I have the video. A day after, when most papers carried the rebuttal, now the next day, somebody sent a video, the Attorney General himself, addressing some, I don't know whether party loyalists or whoever. He was saying, who will stop us from sharing what we have? He said, if I have my way, I will buy 100 airplanes and distribute to people.
Not even the GLKs.
Good. So it is the same thing. Now, last week, somebody shared a message. I don't know, it may not be true that during Tafawa Balewa, he traveled out, and then his private secretary, because his mother, Tafawa Balewa's mother was in Lagos. She visited him. She was hungry to go back home, and she was not willing to wait for her son to come back. Now his private secretary directed that the state aircraft should be used to take her back to Bauchi. And when he came back, he asked questions. They said, this was what happened. He said, you have to pay.
That's right.
He said his private secretary must pay.
Because he's using state resources.
But you can see now, even if they are not using the presidential jet, but I can assure you that in the next 1 week, we will see like
the vice president.
Yes. So he's not using private jet. That is state resources. Now, most of the ministers are using chartered flight. Do you know how much it costs to charter a plane? And almost every day, they move from one state to the other because the roads have been taken over by bandits. The roads have been taken over by terrorists. They can't
dare. It's not for the masses to fly.
They can't.
Because they have no option.
Yes, they can't dare travel from here to Kaduna by road. From here to Karu, which is I'm telling you,
impossible.
none of them will drive from here to Karu for campaign. So you can see the level of decadence.
Right. Okay. Looking at all of this happening, Mr. Jide Ojo, are there lessons to be learned? Because Nigerians who are bearing the brunt of poverty and hardship are also seeing what is happening. And yet they are the ones to decide. You know, well, I don't know whether the votes will count or so, but then they are the ultimate deciders as to who, you know, emerge. Are we learning lessons?
Before we come to lessons learned, did you know that I had it on good authority that there is a camp who, thinking that they were going to, the APC was going to use the delegates that were used for the convention, was already distributing money to delegates. Not knowing that
I've seen some surface on the social media, package and then the money.
Not knowing that the delegates will now have to be freshly elected.
Yeah.
Where did they get this money to spend? Bribing delegates. And that's what it will come to. Now, these delegates that are going to be elected in the coming days, many of them would jostle to ensure that they are on the delegates list because of buying out.
Already there are feelers that people at the grassroots level, at the state, that's subnational levels, and at the local levels are even bribing their way to become delegates.
That's what I'm saying. They will bribe their way because they know, looking at the area of aspirants, they are going to have bountiful harvest at the venue of the primaries, wherever they choose to have it. So that is one. Two, coming to lessons learned, can we really say we are having any lessons learned? Because from previous experiences, the anti-corruption agencies have failed us. If they did not fail us, if in 2018, that phantom group in Kogi that bought the 45 million naira form for President Buhari, if they have been fished out and prosecuted,
perhaps others will learn.
Perhaps we will have been talking of lessons learned. But now it's impunity on all fours. So it's now trying to
But the agency is saying that it's going to track this and it's going to investigate.
No, forget. Who nominated EFCC chairman? The person who nominated him, who is from the same state with him, is the chief law officer, and you think he will turn around to indict?
But you don't know, perhaps maybe the satellite will be beamed, you know,
let me tell you one of the lessons learned. No, I won't say whether it's lessons learned. On a radio program where I finished earlier this evening, someone called and said, Emefiele is contesting. But INEC sensitive materials are first kept in CBN vaults.
That's right.
Now, the person who you are keeping those sensitive materials in his custody
It's an interesting party.
It's an interested party. So you can see how this will sit with opposition element. Now that it has come out very clearly that APC, the CBN governor, is an interested member, is not just
pending interpretation of.
No, it's not about interpretation. Madam Shafi, it's not about interpretation. What I'm saying is that we are talking of lessons learned. Now, did you know the reason why INEC don't print sensitive election materials in Nigeria? Which has raised the cost of printing materials exponentially. They have to print outside because the political class said they do not trust Nigeria Printing and Minting, given that the board of Nigeria Printing and Minting is constituted by partisan members.
Now, even the custody would also be put in question.
Now, I don't know whether it's the office of IG that they will now keep election material. Because with what has happened with Emefiele, that CBN vote is now tainted.
Well, as we round up, looking at the implication of all of this to our leadership recruitment process, because that is the ultimate, that's where will feel the punch, the more, because Nigerians are yearning for good governance. And of course, the idea is to sanitize the electoral process, is to also make the leadership recruitment process, seamless, so that Nigerians can vote for, candidates of their choice. With all of this happening, what impact would it have on, the yearnings and aspirations towards having this credible leadership ahead of in 2023?
Very sad. We're heading for the precipice because we are all complicit. Let me be frank with you. The media, the political parties, the empires, and then the populace, we are all complicit. Now we are condemning APC that it has failed us for the last 7 years, approaching the 8th year now. But every other person who wants to win election, which party does he join? Can't we demystify the APC to go for other political parties? You can see from the position of councillor, local government chairman, House of Assembly, House of Reps, every other person is just going to
But at what point can we do that when we know that money drives everything?
You can start from somewhere. It's not necessary that everybody must come to Abuja, right? Some of these political parties, we should have regional parties. I think that is the way to go. If you are talking about recruitment process, we should have regional parties. It's not wrong. That was why we had the MPN, the NPP, the GNPP. If a state can control, political party can control 3-4 states and then show the difference. You have governors, you have members of House of Assembly, and then they have philosophy. They want to achieve something, let's say housing, education, or water, and they succeed. Next election season, they can spread their tentacles to others.
But our politicians are not looking at that. They're looking at the big one, the center.
So I'm trying to answer. Maybe we should tell them that this is how, if we want to change, this is how we should go. And then the media, we should also give voice. I am an editor, as well as a reporter. So I know our news judgment is faulty. If a small political party is doing something in Katsina or in Ekiti, we don't really care. You rarely see it on the front page.
Right. Taking it from that point, we're rounding up the role of the media. So far, we've seen, the level of reportage and how the direction it is taking. It's just about reporting the money bags, showering these monies, doling out cars and what have you. What happens to our, ability to interrogate, to ask questions, to put these people on the spotlight? What do you make up of the role of the media now, and perhaps what it should do ahead of the elections?
Unfortunately, when you talk of media in the electioneering process or in politics, you won't get anything better than what you are seeing.
Why?
The reason being that those who are publicly owned, they are doing its master's voice because of security of office, tenure, and all of that. Whereas the privately owned, that should even show more editorial independence, 90% of them, I dare say, if not 95%, are owned by politicians. Is it the nation? Is it the?
I don't want you to begin to mention names.
No, name them. Whether print or electronic.
So that we're not accused of the marketing media
I'm not marketing anybody. I don't know who is what. I don't know about Daily Trust.
Well,
but for majority, whether you name names or you don't name names.
I think we can look at them,
with majority,
collectively.
You know who the founders are and whose interest the founder is trying to protect.
And maybe, Shafiu, to put it differently, most of the media houses are driven by business interests.
That's secondary.
So the politicians,
but they're out to make money.
Exactly. So the politicians, if you have your money, you have your way in the media houses. You can buy
even
even
though we have a law that says that you have to give equal treatment to all political.
Forget about those laws. The issue now is taken from one, primarily the ownership structure. Two is business model. you want to stay afloat. I'm sure we are running on diesel in this studio. Now, look at the operation cost to have a media conglomerate surviving in this very inclement business environment. I recall that there was a particular newspaper. Let me quickly say this.
We have to
This particular newspaper that was up against one of the ministers of petroleum resources some years ago. The minister made sure that no ministry, department of agency of government ply their trade, place advert in that news, and it went under.
Thank you very much.
So that is how business interests are influencing independence of media.
Thank you very much. I think we can go on and on. This is an unending conversation, but then we have time to look at. Thank you very much for your perspectives on the program. Malam Hamza, we also appreciate your coming despite the late, the very short notice. We really appreciate. So on behalf of guests, my name is Shafiu Suleiman. We hope you had an enjoyable bit of the show. Join us tomorrow where we'll be back with another interesting personalities and topics. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day.